My husband left me with his $15,000 motorcycle loan, maxed out my emergency card, and went away with his best friend's wife. He left a receipt on the fridge with a note, "Thanks for the free ride." Then, my coworkers whispered behind my back. One said loudly, "She probably deserved it." 2 days later, a message popped up on my son's tablet that made my heart stop. It still feels strange saying it out loud, even months later. Like it happened to someone else. Like I watched it unfold in a movie. But it was real. It was my life. My name's Maura, and if you've ever been left by someone you built your whole world around, blindsided, buried in debt, and humiliated, then maybe you'll understand the kind of fire that lit up in my bones when everything came crashing down. I didn't see it coming. Not really. Looking back, there were signs. You always say that, right? In hindsight. But in real life, things aren't so dramatic. There's no villain music, no screaming fights. Just small changes. Cold silences. Phone screens turned away. Working late. And the slow, creeping sense that something is very wrong, but you're too tired and too hopeful to dig. Travis and I had been married 12 years. He was a mechanic, a damn good one, to be fair, and he loved motorcycles. His pride and joy was a matte black Harley with chrome detailing. Every Sunday, he'd be out there in the garage for hours. Cleaning it. Upgrading it. Spending money we didn't really have on new parts, tools, or riding gear. I used to love that about him, the way he had something to pour himself into. Something that made him feel alive. I didn't care about the money back then. I figured it was harmless. We had Callum, our sweet, curious 8-year-old, and a cozy house in Tacoma. I was working at St. Joseph Medical Center, doing respiratory therapy. We weren't rich, but we were steady. That's what I thought. Until that Thursday. The day started like any other. I worked a double. One of the night shift girls had called out, and I volunteered to cover. When I finally got home, my whole body was aching. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my sneakers, and listened for Callum. I found him curled up on the couch, half asleep with his tablet in his hands, a bag of half-eaten chips beside him. No Travis. No sounds from the garage. I figured maybe he went out for a ride. But then I walked into the kitchen and saw it. A folded receipt, pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a smiley face. And scrawled across the paper in thick black marker, "Thanks for the free ride, Maura." It didn't register right away. My brain skimmed over the words, looking for something to make sense. I unfolded the receipt. It was a purchase from a Harley dealership. Almost $2,400 in parts. Billed to my emergency credit card. My hands went cold. Underneath it, another sticky note. Left the bike. Loan's yours now. I rushed to the garage. Empty. The Harley was gone. So was his helmet. His boots. His jacket. Even the old can of chain oil he kept on the shelf. I ran upstairs. The closet door was open. My side looked normal, work scrubs, old jeans, winter sweaters. But his side? Nearly empty. A few ratty t-shirts, a couple socks. Everything else, gone. He left me. Without a word. No fight. No warning. And that wasn't the worst part. The next morning, I started making calls. Credit card company. Loan office. Even his brother, Lyle, who lived out in Puyallup. Nothing. No one knew where he was. Or so I thought. By Saturday, word had spread at work. Selena, a nurse from ICU, walked past me in the break room with her friend Brandy. I heard the whispers before I saw them. She probably pushed him away, Brandy muttered. Selena didn't even lower her voice. Maybe she had it coming. You don't know what goes on in people's houses. I stood there, holding a coffee cup like it was the only thing anchoring me to earth. I wanted to scream. To throw something. To yell, "You don't know me. You don't know what he did." But instead, I just walked out. It was easier that way. Sunday night, Callum fell asleep watching a movie in bed. I was folding laundry when his tablet dinged. I picked it up to plug it in, and that's when I saw it. A notification from some obscure-looking app, not one I had downloaded. It was a message. From someone named Frostridder. It said, "Tell your mom I'm sorry. She needs to check the locker at Mount Rainier Trail Lot 3. Code 4186. At first, I thought it was spam. Some creepy bot or kids game. But then the second message came. I didn't know what he was planning. "I'm sorry." My heart dropped. Someone had used Callum's tablet to send me a secret message. Someone who knew Travis. Someone who knew I needed answers. I didn't know what to believe, but I couldn't ignore it. I drove out there that same night, just after 9 p.m. The road to the Mount Rainier trailhead was quiet, icy in spots. Fog hung low like a ghost draped over the forest. My hands were shaking the whole time. When I pulled into Lot 3, it was almost completely empty. Just my car and a few hikers' pickups. I followed the directions and found a row of lockers, old metal storage bins hikers used to stash gear. Locker 27. I punched in the code, 4186. Click. Inside was a small blue duffel bag. And a single folded sheet of paper. Typed. Signed at the bottom. Elise. My breath caught. Elise was our neighbor. Travis's best friend's wife. I stood there in the dark parking lot, duffel bag in one hand, letter in the other, and the silence of the mountain pressing in on me like a secret waiting to explode. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper. It was short. Just a few paragraphs. But every word cut through me like a blade. Elise had typed it. Probably at some internet cafe or public library. I imagined her nervously looking over her shoulder while she did it. She didn't even use my name in the greeting. Just started mid-thought, like she couldn't bring herself to make it formal. I didn't know what he was really doing. I swear, Maura. I thought he was being honest with me. He said you were cheating. He said you drained his account and threatened to take Callum. I believed him. I exhaled slowly, my breath fogging in the air. That lie. That disgusting, twisted lie. I had never cheated. Never even thought about it. I was the one patching things up after every fight, keeping the house running, making sure Callum's lunches were packed, staying up late to do laundry while Travis was out God knows where. The letter continued. I never meant to get involved. At first, it was just flirting. Then he kissed me in the garage one night when Brent and I were fighting. I should have stopped it. But I was stupid. Lonely. He told me he loved me. That he wanted to start over with me. He said you'd be fine. That you'd figure it out, because Maura always does. That's what he kept saying, that you were strong and would survive it. It was like being punched in the gut. I gripped the letter tighter. The words blurred a little, but I kept reading. What he didn't tell me, until we were already on the road, was how deep he'd gone. He'd taken out a second loan in your name. He showed me forged paperwork. He bragged about how you'd never see it coming. He maxed your card, pawned your grandmother's necklace, the one he said was in the safety box, and said once the Harley sold, we'd disappear. I suddenly remembered the necklace. The one my mom had left me when she died. I kept it in a lockbox in our bedroom closet. It hadn't crossed my mind. I hadn't even checked. I slammed the locker shut and drove home with the duffel bag on the passenger seat, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I got home, I tore open the box in the closet. Empty. I didn't cry. I just stood there, staring into it like it might explain something. Like maybe if I stared long enough, the necklace would appear again and this would all go away. It didn't. I opened the duffel bag next. Inside were a few things Elise had managed to salvage from wherever they'd stayed. a burner phone, a key to a storage unit in Sumner, and a printed receipt with my name on it, from some payday loan place I'd never heard of. $8,000. My name. My social security number. My forged signature. He'd used me. Systematically. Thoroughly. And he hadn't just disappeared. He'd made sure that when he did, I'd be left cleaning up the fallout while trying to raise our son and keep a roof over our heads. Elise ended the letter with, "I'm going back to Brent." I told him everything. He said he doesn't forgive me, but he's letting me stay for now, for the kids. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I thought you should know. He's not who you thought he was. And I don't think he ever was. I read that line over and over. He's not who you thought he was. No. He wasn't. And maybe he never had been. I went to the police the next morning. It wasn't the first time they'd heard Travis's name that week. Turns out, he'd left a few messes behind. The credit fraud was enough to open a case, especially since the paperwork clearly showed forged signatures. I brought in the letter, the documents, even the burner phone. The detective I spoke to, a quiet woman named Patrice, nodded solemnly and took everything down. But the truth? They didn't expect to find him. Not anytime soon. He was good at running. They advised me to freeze my credit. Alert all 3 bureaus. Set up identity theft protection. I remember sitting in the car outside the station afterward, just staring out at nothing, trying to remember how I got there. How I ended up with a child to raise, $15,000 of debt, a missing husband, a pawned family heirloom, and coworkers who whispered behind my back like I was the villain. I went to work the next day anyway. Because bills don't care if your life is falling apart. Neither do people, honestly. Selena didn't say anything when I walked in. But she looked at me, and then away, like I was some stain on her shoe. I didn't care. I had other things to worry about now. Callum asked about his dad that night. I sat on the edge of his bed, brushing his hair back from his forehead, trying to find the right words. Daddy had to go away for a while, I said gently. He looked up at me. Is he coming back? I don't know, baby, I whispered. But we're okay. You and me? We're okay. He nodded like he believed me. I wasn't sure I did. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, police updates that never came, and long nights filled with silence. I started waking up at 3 a.m., like my body was stuck in some kind of grief cycle. I visited the storage unit from the key Elise left. It was small. Tucked behind a tire shop in Sumner. Inside were 2 boxes of Travis's old tools, a photo of him and Callum at a car show, and, weirdly, a notebook. Just a plain black moleskine. I opened it out of habit. Inside were pages and pages of scribbled numbers. Passwords. Bank routing info. Sketches of motorcycles. A list titled Debt Priorities. And another one labeled Exit Plan. That's when I realized he hadn't snapped. He planned this. Every dollar. Every lie. Every forged document. He'd been building an escape hatch for at least a year. And I was just the ladder he climbed to get out. I stared down at that notebook for nearly 20 minutes without turning a page. The handwriting was unmistakably his, sharp, almost aggressive strokes, like he was always in a hurry or pissed off. Maybe both. The words didn't blur because I was crying. They blurred because I couldn't process them all at once. One line kept jumping out, Mora's credit equals fallback. He'd written it like I wasn't even a person, just a tool. A means to an end. My name didn't even get a full sentence. Just that cold, clinical equation. There were other things scrawled in the margins, reminders to call banks, strange initials, phone numbers I didn't recognize, and dates that stretched back more than a year. A whole life lived in secret. A whole plan crafted while I was putting dinner on the table, folding his socks, watching movies with our son on Sunday nights. He was laying the bricks of his escape while I was out here holding the weight of everything. I took the notebook straight to Detective Patrice the next day. She flipped through it, eyebrows knitting tighter with every page. "This changes things," she said. "He left a paper trail. Does it help?" She hesitated. "It doesn't hurt. But finding him is still going to be hard. If he's using cash and aliases, it's like chasing smoke. That's the part they don't tell you. That even when someone robs you blind, emotionally destroys your family, and walks off with a chunk of your life, you might still have to just wait. Wait and hope they screw up. Wait and hope the system that failed you before gets it right this time. Meanwhile, you're still out here paying bills with whatever's left." The hospital let me switch to nights after a few weeks. I needed the shift differential pay, and honestly, I couldn't stand walking the halls during the day anymore. Too many familiar faces. Too many fake smiles and whispers when they thought I couldn't hear. Night shift was quieter. Colder. But the silence suited me. I didn't have to pretend there. I could just work. Move patients. Manage vents. Help people breathe, while I kept holding mine. I filed for legal separation, which came with a mountain of paperwork. Since Travis technically hadn't abandoned us for the legal period required, it wasn't straightforward. The lawyer explained that his sudden departure with someone else didn't automatically mean I got everything. Especially not with the mess he'd left behind. But here's the part that really twisted the knife: because he was missing, I couldn't serve him. Which meant the separation stalled. And that meant the debts? Still partially considered marital. Even though he was gone. Even though I had proof. The law didn't care that he disappeared into thin air. It only cared about documents. Deadlines. Signatures. I was trying to pull my life out of quicksand and the courts were tossing me paperwork instead of a rope. Callum had started sleeping in my bed by then. Every night he'd sneak in after I left for work, burrow under the covers like he was still 5. My sister, Nadia, stayed with him during my shifts, but it was clear he wasn't okay. And I didn't have the luxury of a breakdown. One night, while folding laundry after work, I found a crumpled drawing stuffed under his pillow. It was a stick figure family. A little boy. A mom. A man with a big red X drawn through his face. I sat on the floor of his room and just held it. He was grieving in his own way. And he didn't even have all the facts. I didn't know how much to tell him. What's too much for an 8-year-old? That his dad was a liar? A thief? That he left because he wanted to, not because he had to? That he used his mom like a stepping stone? Instead, I started telling him small truths. That his dad made choices that hurt us. That he left without saying goodbye. That sometimes people do things we don't understand, and that it's not our fault. I didn't mention the loans. Or the notebook. Or the storage unit. Those were mine to carry. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. No name. Just my full name, spelled correctly, written in all caps. Inside was a Polaroid. Of Travis. It looked recent. He was standing in front of a rundown motel somewhere warm, Arizona, maybe? Southern California? The kind of place with palm trees struggling to stay alive next to faded stucco buildings. He had a beard now, looked thinner. He was wearing a baseball cap pulled low, and his arm was around someone, not Elise. A different woman. On the back, scrawled in the same handwriting as the notebook, "Some people just don't know when they've got a good thing. But I do." No signature. No message. Just that sick little line, like a middle finger from 900 miles away. I turned it in to the detective, of course. She sent it to forensics, but told me not to get my hopes up. "It's a taunt," she said. "He wants you to know he's still ahead. That he's still in control." I nodded, but inside I was already making a decision. This wasn't going to end with me being the victim. He wanted a game? Fine. I could play too. The next time I opened that notebook, I went page by page. I made a spreadsheet. I started tracking things. Cross-referencing dates with charges on my cards, bank statements, even things he bought off Craigslist. I flagged every name, every phone number. I spent hours at night with a glass of cheap wine and that beat-up old notebook like I was prepping for a final exam. And the more I looked, the more I found. It wasn't just about the money anymore. There were people he conned. Places he stayed under fake names. Transactions that led to burner phones and one-off email accounts. It was like watching a man unravel in reverse. The closer I got to the beginning, the more I saw just how long he'd been constructing his escape route. He didn't just run. He burned the bridge behind him and salted the ground. The first call came from a man named Dennis. He left a voicemail. Just said, "Hi. I think your ex-husband sold me a bike. There's something weird about the VIN. Call me back." I nearly deleted it. But something in his voice, cautious, almost embarrassed, made me stop. When I called him back, he told me he'd bought a Harley a few weeks ago in a cash deal off Facebook Marketplace. Said the seller went by Ray. Looked kinda scruffy, kept his hat low. But it was the same bike, Dennis swore. He found the registration tucked into the side bag and my name was on it. That bike. The Harley Travis said he left behind, the one he took off with instead, he'd sold it. Of course he had. The $15,000 loan still sat in my name like an anchor strapped to my ankle, and meanwhile, he was off peddling the bike and using aliases. Dennis felt bad. He sent me a photo of the guy who sold it to him. A blurry side shot, but I recognized him. Even with the beard. Even with the tan and the sunglasses. It was Travis. Dennis offered to help. He wanted to get his money back and said if there was anything he could do, he'd testify. He wasn't the only one. 2 days later, another call came in, this time from a woman named Janice. "I saw your name in the notebook," she said. "What notebook?" "The one he left behind in my storage unit." I froze. Apparently, Travis had lived with her for a while. Used a fake name again, said he was a contractor passing through town. They had a short fling. He left in the middle of the night one weekend and took $900 in cash from her safe. But he also left behind a gym bag with papers. She opened it after seeing my name on some of the docs and decided to look me up. Janice mailed me the papers. They were more receipts, some IDs with half-scratched names, and, this time, a prepaid Visa card, mostly used up, but still traceable. I forwarded it all to Detective Patrice. The paper trail was growing. But it still didn't feel like enough. He'd humiliated me. Buried me in debt. Left me with a child to raise and a life to rebuild. I didn't want him to rot in jail. I didn't even care if he apologized anymore. I just wanted to flip the script. So, I did. I called a lawyer. A real shark. She'd helped a friend of mine through a nasty divorce, and everyone said she was brutal, but honest. Her name was Marianne, and she wore red lipstick like armor. She listened to everything. Asked smart questions. Took notes like she was assembling an arsenal. Then she leaned back and said, "Okay. You want justice? We're going to get you power of leverage first." She explained how we could file for legal separation under abandonment, now that we had documented proof of his disappearance, the fraud, and testimony from third parties. And, she added, there was a strong enough case to sue him in civil court for damages and fraud. "But you'll never see a dime," I said. "He doesn't have anything." Marianne smirked. "Oh, he will. We're going to make sure he can't sneeze without the IRS knowing about it." With her help, we froze all known assets tied to his social security number, even the ones he tried to hide. We also filed a formal complaint with the IRS. They love tip-offs about undeclared income, and the sale of the Harley hadn't been reported. Marianne also pushed to reopen the motorcycle loan under fraudulent use, arguing I had no knowledge of the additional terms. It was an uphill battle, but the bank, now faced with a potential civil suit, agreed to drop half the loan amount as part of a settlement. We also sent certified notices to each of the credit agencies, attaching the police report and the new evidence. Slowly, the damage on my credit started to be reversed. Not overnight, but enough. That's when I had my final move. Remember the storage unit? Inside the last envelope Janice sent, there were some old business cards Travis had collected. One of them was from a dealership in Nevada. I called them. I pretended I was his assistant. "Oh yeah," the guy said, "Ray? He came through here a few months ago. Said he might buy a used car with cash." I dropped the name. The alias. The fact that he was a wanted man. A week later, they called me back. We saw him. I contacted Detective Patrice immediately. They coordinated with local authorities. 2 weeks later, I got the call. They'd picked him up on a warrant for identity theft. In the glove box of the used Honda Civic he'd bought with cash? 2 IDs. A stack of prepaid debit cards. And another notebook. He was brought back to Washington. Charged with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and forgery. He tried to play the victim. Claimed I had forged the documents. That I was trying to ruin his life out of revenge. But Marianne was waiting. She brought testimony. Documents. Phone records. Witnesses. Janice and Dennis even testified via Zoom. He squirmed. Blamed everyone. But the evidence didn't care about his excuses. He got sentenced to 4 years of probation, community service, and court-mandated debt repayment, starting with the $15,000 he dumped on me. He has to pay every month, and the second he misses a payment, the court reopens his case. He can't own a credit card. Can't apply for a loan. Can't rent an apartment without notifying the court. His wages, if he ever earns any, are garnished. He's trapped in a system he created. And the best part? He's alive, free, and aware that I outplayed him. He knows I'm not broken. That I rebuilt my credit. That I still have my house. That Callum is doing well in therapy. That I got a raise and changed departments. That I smile now. Not because I forgot, but because I won. Sometimes I still get emails from strange accounts, no message, just subject lines like "You'll regret this." I mark them as spam. The war's over. I don't need to keep fighting. Because now? He's stuck looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life, waiting for the next knock, the next freeze, the next consequence. And me? I sleep just fine.